PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, here on Vegas Hockey a Recap, where we break down every single game of the 2024-2025 season. And this was a very interesting episode, and that is the PG way to say it, as we are going to be talking about how the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Edmonton Oilers. And unlike what happened previously, this game did not go the way that your Vegas Golden Knights were hoping that it would go when it came to the Edmonton Oilers. So we're going to talk about every single thing that happened in here and a little excitement from the pregame notes, as there was a good thing that happened involving the Vegas Golden Knights and a certain player on the bottom six. So we're going to go over everything here on Vegas Hockey a Recap, here with your host, Ian Rachiele. Now, on the pregame note side, I did mention that there is really no lineup changes. It's pretty much the exact same from what happened in the previous game that the Vegas Golden Knights did. There really is not going to be much in terms of talking about the starting lineup. And yes, we will go over who the lineup is in just a second. But there is a positive story that came out of this game heading into Edmonton, and that is the contract extension of number 55, Keegan Kolesar. Now, Keegan Kolesar, he has spent 6 seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights. He has been with the organization since 2017, 2018, was in the minors since day one. So Keegan Kolesar, who's really become a leader in the locker room. Anybody who's watched him during warmups, you would see that he has really developed and grown and matured into a leader with your Vegas Golden Knights. Well, Vegas, Kelly McCrimmon, George McPhee, Bill Foley, they have decided to reward Keegan Kolesar with his performance already, as he will be getting a contract extension with the Vegas Golden Knights. This will be a 3-year deal worth $7.5 million. So this is a really good sign by Vegas. Keegan Kolesar, his progression, his development, this is a part of the Vegas Golden Knights that you can appreciate when it comes to the Golden Knights. Keegan Kolesar, this is a guy who was on the second line for a little bit this year. He's been on the fourth line. They've even put him on the third line at some times throughout the years. And, 7 goals in 29 games. I really appreciate what Keegan Kolesar has done. And for anybody who is a Vegas Golden Knights, diehard or casual fan, you can observe that as the seasons have gone on and as the years have gone by, Keegan Kolesar has become a really good, positive player on that bottom six. He's reliable. He's durable. And I appreciate what the Vegas Golden Knights have done. So, 3-year contract extension, $2.5 million per year. And he is going to be with the Vegas Golden Knights until 2027, 2028. So for the impending free agent, he is not going to be going anywhere. Vegas Golden Knights gave him the contract extension to stay in Vegas. So that's really good news for Vegas, that Keegan Kolesar is going to be staying here as part of the Golden Knights. And before we get into the game itself, and before we talk about what happened between Edmonton and Vegas, there is one last thing that I do want to talk about. And this one is kind of somber because it's kind of unfortunate to talk about. But because of the news and because it is Vegas related, I do got to mention it. The Robin Lehner situation, the stuff that's going on social media. Now, for anybody who is unaware, on Twitter very recently, Robin Lehner has gone on a spam tweets. He's been tweeting out a bunch of stuff, and it's a lot of eerie things. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, he's tweeted out like full paragraphs and stuff that is on Twitter. And, when it comes to mental health, I do want to say this real quick. Mental health is very important. And when it comes to Robin Leonard, clearly something is going on with him. And, don't want to get into a person's personal life. I don't want to get into what's going on with him. But I will say, by the way, sincerely, I hope that he does get better. Hopefully, Robin Leonard, whatever's going on, eventually, he does eventually works things out. But when it comes to Robin Leonard, some of the tweets that he put out did address the Vegas Golden Knights itself. There was tweets talking about Pete DeBoer. There were tweets about Bruce Cassidy. There was even some things about, for example, Kelly McCrimmon, George McPhee. And the only notable thing that I will address about this is that the story that the Vegas Golden Knights and the NHL was discussing about Robin Leonard's injury and what Robin Leonard was tweeting about on his Twitter seems to contradict what the story was when it came to the Vegas Golden Knights organization. Essentially, the way Vegas tried to explain that Robin Leonard had this certain injury, Robin Leonard was going through a certain thing when it came to his surgeries and stuff like that. Now, once again, you have to look at everything at face value. We're definitely going to have to determine what's going to happen in the long-term future. But yeah, it was a very scary situation because somebody on Twitter saw that Robin Leonard, for a span of, I think, 2-3 hours, was just tweeting out these long paragraphs. And some of it was regarding the Vegas Golden Knights itself. So, yeah, Robin Leonard's situation, very unfortunate to talk about. Like I said, I wish him the best. I hope that, whatever's going on, there's a good resolution there. But, yeah, so because he was talking about the Vegas Golden Knights, some tweets were talking about Vegas, that's why we had to bring it up. Now, the starting lineup for your Vegas Golden Knights. On line one, you have Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, and Mark Stone. So the first line that has been arguably the best performing line when they have been together as a combination. Ivan Barbashev has had a really stellar season. Jack Eichel over a point per game. And then, of course, you got your captain and one of the best two-way forwards in the game in Mark Stone. On the second line, you have Alexander Holtz, Tomas Hertl, and Victor Olofsson. So Victor Olofsson and Tomas Hertl, we've actually seen a little bit of chemistry between the two when it comes to the past couple of games. Alexander Holtz, honestly, trying to find anything of note. I mean, only 2 goals in the last 29 games. But overall, Toronto's trying to see if there's anything Vegas can do with him. Now, on forward line 3, you have Brett Howden, William Karlsson, and Pavel Dorofeyev. And this line has gelled really well throughout the year. Brett Howden, one of the most underrated guys we've seen throughout the year. He's been racking up a decent amount of goals. William Karlsson, he's done good when he's on the ice. And then Pavel Dorofeyev, who's been your breakout star for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, on the fourth line, you have your Tanner Pearson, who's been an everyday fourth liner since the beginning of the year. You have Nicholas Waugh and the contract extension himself, Keegan Kolazar. So, when it comes to the forwards, not really big surprises here. I'll say that second line is a bit interesting, but the first line is great. Third line is solid, and the fourth line has been productive. On the defensive pairing side, you have Noah Hannafin and Alex Pietrangelo, Brayden McNabb, and Shea Theodore. And then you have Nick Hague and Zach Whitecloud. So not much changing on defensive pairings there. And then in net for the Vegas Golden Knights would be Aiden Hill. So, that's going to be heading into this game. And, there's definitely a lot we can talk about when it comes to your Vegas Golden Knights. Now, getting into the game itself at Rogers Place out there in Edmonton. Now, to start out the first period, the Vegas Golden Knights, in a few minutes in, would be on the power play as there would be an interference call on Edmonton. And despite the power play success we have seen over the last month, Vegas did not get the puck in the back of the net. So it would stay a 0-0 game halfway into the first period. And then, unfortunately for the Vegas Golden Knights, you would end up having a penalty from Brett Howden and Brett Howden would get a roughing penalty. He would go to the penalty box, and this would open the door for the Edmonton Oilers as Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the power play. He would get it right past Adin Hill. It would make it a 1-0 game in the first period. So for the Edmonton Oilers, they get on the board first against Vegas. And, it's unfortunate. Of course, you don't want to let up power play goals. You want to, do really good on the penalty kill. But this was just more of a bang-bang situation. I mean, damn it, if there was, every single power play got killed and the penalty kill was 100%, oh, that'd be the greatest thing ever. But it's not going to happen there. So at the end of the first period, Vegas is down 1-0. But this would be actually the positive of this game, as the Vegas Golden Knights would have arguably the worst second period that we have seen since the Utah game a while back. As the Vegas Golden Knights would let up not 1 goal, not 2 goals, not 3 goals, but they would let up 4 goals in 1 period. Adin Hill, we'll talk more about his performance later on, but for the Vegas Golden Knights to be down 5-0 is an embarrassment in this game. And it's very unfortunate for me to say. And instead of, me trying to look like I've memorized all of this, I'm just going to look over the monitor right here and tell you exactly who scored. Hold on a second. So to start out the second period, not even 90 seconds in, Zach Heyman, he would score. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would get his second point of the game with an assist. That would be that 2-0 there. And then a little bit later, Connor Brown would get a goal, and Leon Draisaitl, over 20 assists already on the year, he would be credited with a point on this goal. So now you're 3-0, 2 goals led up in the second period. But hold on, we're not done. And then halfway into this, Leon Draisaitl, who has 22 goals on the year, arguably one of the best goal scorers in the National Hockey League, he gets it past Adin Hill halfway into the second period. And by the way, former Vegas Golden Knight Matthias Janmark with an assist on that goal. But it's 4-0, right? 3 goals. All right, we'll see if that... No, we ain't done. As Corey Perry, the Anaheim Ducks legend Corey Perry, he would get it past Adin Hill, and that would make it a 5-0 game for the Edmonton Oilers. And, Connor Brown, he would get an assist on there. That would be a second point there. But this was just offensive firepower and just true dominance in this second period. I mean, the first half of the second period, Edmonton was on all cylinders, and Vegas was just going backwards and going in reverse. So overall, Edmonton Oilers being up 5-0, Draisaitl, Brown, Hopkins. You had, for example, Corey Perry, a guy who's been an established veteran, someone who is probably going to be most likely an Anaheim Ducks Hall of Famer when the time is done. But overall, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, it was just a very bad display of the fact that they were down 5-0. Towards the end of the second period, the Vegas Golden Knights would score 2 goals, would make it a 5-2 game at the end of the second period. Victor Olofsson, he would get Vegas on the board first. And this is, Victor Olofsson. He's come back from that injury, and he's done well on that second line. I mean, he's been on the second, he's been on the third, he's been on the fourth. And Tomas Hertl with the assist on there. It was a good play, I will say that. The way that they were, trying to, pass the puck around, trying to create opportunities. And then later on, Ivan Barbashev would end up, I will say, getting his 15th goal of the season. And overall, I'm going to mention this. The strong start for Ivan Barbashev is continuing here. Him being on that first line, there were so many question marks when it came to Ivan Barbashev. I mean, what was going to be, his long-term future on the first line? I mean, this is a guy who did struggle a little bit last year. Well, this year, 15 goals in 30 games, so he's still on that half a goal pace. I mean, I'm not sitting here and saying that he's going to score 41 goals this year, but that definitely would be very nice if he did. And when it comes to Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, by the way, his point streak continues, having 21 assists already on the year, comparing him to Draisaitl and everything. Draisaitl already around that same mark on Edmonton. Vegas has Jack Eichel on that mark. And then in the third period, the Edmonton Oilers, they would get one final goal, and it would come from Buffalo Sabres legend Jeff Skinner. And, when it comes to Edmonton Oilers, at that point, you're at Rogers Place, you're at home. The fans are super excited. And what I do want to mention is that in the third period, there were some bad calls in this game. The penalties did not go as much as I thought it was going to go in that third period. There was 4 or 5 calls that should have been going to the box, 2 for Vegas, 3 for Edmonton, but we only got 1 penalty in the third period. And not really good calls tonight by the referees. And when you're a hockey fan, or if you're someone who watches hockey, yes, it's easy to blame the referees when you lose. But when it comes to the third period, it just seemed like there was just some sloppy referee play in that third period. And then, the final goal for the Vegas Golden Knights in that third period, Brett Howden with an unassisted goal. And I do want to mention that this was a shorthanded goal by Brett Howden because they were on the penalty, because Vegas did get that one and only penalty in the third period. Now, Vegas, you lose 6-3 against Edmonton. And once again, Adin Hill, not a great performance tonight. I understand that there's going to be some people who are going to watch this episode who are fans of Adin Hill. They're going to defend Adin Hill no matter what. I understand that. But this was just not a great performance by Adin Hill. Was one of the 2 goals could have been, a defensive problem? Was there some turnovers that led to having a goal going the other way? Sure. But when you let up 5, 6, 7 goals in a game, at some point you have to hold the goalie at least somewhat responsible for that. So, I've said before that Adin Hill is the streakiest goaltender I think I've seen in the last decade in the NHL. When he's on it, he is one of the best goalies in the NHL. And then when he's not on it, he looks like a backup goaltender at times. So when it comes to Adin Hill, this was just not his best performance tonight. I also want to mention, by the way, this is the Edmonton Oilers' 5th win in a row, and they're actually catching Vegas when it comes to, you see what Vegas's win-loss record is. You see what the Edmonton Oilers' win-loss record is. So overall, when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, they are riding that momentum of a 5-game win streak. I do want to remind you that this is the Vegas Golden Knights who are riding a 4-game win streak a while back. But overall, when it comes to this game, not many positives, but your player of the game would go to Brett Howden, especially, on the defensive end. He was completing his checks. I did like that, Brett Howden was showing some aggression in this game, actually had a little bit of unnecessary aggression when he took that roughing penalty in the first period. But overall, Brett Howden, he scores that goal. 11 goals already on the year for Brett Howden. But overall, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, he would be the one player that would get that player of the game distinction. Now, moving forward, the Vegas Golden Knights, Minnesota Wild, we know what's going to happen there. And then after that, you're really going to be going up against the Pacific Division. You got Vancouver, you got Seattle, you got Anaheim. Like, there's going to be this stretch where it's even like Calgary and San Jose. Like, this is really called the Pacific Division stretch, where there is about a 6-game run where you're going up against your division every single night for the Vegas Golden Knights. So this was an unfortunate game for the Vegas Golden Knights. Wish it would have gone better. But overall, we're going to turn this around. Minnesota, we know what's going to happen there. And until next time, go Knights, go, here on Vegas Hockey Recap with your host, Ian Rachiele.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.